Right then, what is happening in America at the moment? Because there is a lot happening in regard to Congress. A possible government shutdown has been narrowly avoided, it would appear. The debt ceiling is a big issue there, just as Donald Trump gets back into power in just less than a month's time. Also, Peter Mandelson, of course, is heading off to be the ambassador to for the United Kingdom in America. But the funding bill has cleared Congress, the US government being narrowly avoiding a crippling shutdown after politicians agreeing the last-minute spending deal, and that would have meant federal employees would have missed their pay ahead of the festive season. Elon Musk, of course, has been involved in a lot of all of this. Donald Trump putting his tuppenny worth in as well, 2 cents worth more accurately. Laurie Laird is a US political commentator and economist, and Steve Gill is a former advisor to the Clinton and Bush administrations. They both join us now. Steve, perhaps I'll start with you. What has actually just happened here?
Well, they dodged the opportunity for the government to get shut down. I say opportunity because it would have restrained some of the spending and some of the crazy stuff that the first bill that the Speaker and the Democrats had concocted, about 1,100 pages that Congress didn't even get to read before they were being demanded to vote on it. And some of the stuff that was tucked into that first version included a 40% pay raise for members of Congress, raising their pay from about $173,000 to $243,000, a 40% increase, while Social Security recipients are getting a 2.5% increase. That got knocked out in this version, but there was a lot of other crazy stuff that was included that didn't make it into this bill, but there's still a lot of bad stuff in it, and that's why a lot of the Republicans voted against it. The Democrats voted for it. In fact, the Democrats passed it with a Republican majority. Tells you that this was still a bad bill.
Laurie, perhaps you could give us your perspective and talk a bit about the economics as well. The debt ceiling, I know, has been a big issue in all of this.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm jumping up and down about. I'm surprised that nobody else is. Donald Trump, one of the things that derailed the first iteration of the bill, and this is the bit that had that big pay rise for lawmakers, and amazing that they voted down a pay rise for themselves. The expediency of the Christmas holidays played into things here. But Donald Trump wanted a repeal of what's called the debt ceiling. And this is simply an arbitrary limit on how much the U.S. government can borrow. Congress sets it itself. Sorry, did it look like you wanted to say something there, Peter?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So this is completely arbitrary. It's not something that's contained in the Constitution. Started in 1917. Donald Trump wanted to get rid of this. I question some of his policies. This one, to me, is spot on. This did not get repealed or lifted. Now, this debt ceiling, which limits how much the government can borrow, this expires on the 2nd of January. So we may have averted a government shutdown, but we come back on the 2nd of January, and in theory, the U.S. is bumping up against this arbitrary limit on how much it can borrow. Now, the U.S., as Steve pointed out, spends a lot more than it brings in revenues. The rest of the spending comes from borrowing. At some point, the Treasury can do a number of, kind of accounting tricks to extend things so that we don't hit that ceiling on the 3rd of January. We don't know exactly the date that we will properly hit that ceiling. Best estimate at the moment is June, but we'll get some information from the Treasury in the days to come, we hope.
Yeah, Steve, I just
this is a big deal.
Yeah, of course. And Steve, the influence of Trump is being felt already. We know that he is building up his administration through the transition period. His fingerprints are all over this to some degree, but of course problems remain for when he actually becomes president again on the 20th of January.
Well, and Laurie's exactly right. The debt ceiling is a huge deal, and Trump wanted it, pushed back for 2 more years to give him the freedom to try and cut spending, to try and have the ability to not have to worry about the debt limit. The Democrats like the debt limit ceiling because it forces these, situations where the government will be shut down if we don't, let them spend money. And then they tuck all these Christmas tree ornaments into these bills at the last minute that are just because the fear of shutting down the government is a problem. And Donald Trump was wanting to avert this constant negotiation strategy that is forced upon us, and as Laurie says, without any real justification. I think the other thing that we're seeing is that Donald Trump, as you mentioned, is having huge impact even before he takes office, whether it's in world events. People are talking about coming to the table for peace talks. You've got the president of Mexico agreeing that, okay, we'll stop the flood of illegals coming across the U.S. border. You have the fact that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the ones that put in charge of cutting spending and better government oversight, their demands are what helped derail this bad budget deal. And Laurie's right. They wanted to get home for Christmas in Congress, but what really killed that 40% pay raise, the American people learned of it, and Elon Musk was threatening to primary any Republican who voted for a bill that included that. They blinked and went home without a pay raise.
Two words, Laurie, that haven't been heard in a lot of this: Biden and Harris. They had some role, but they're the most lame duck of lame duck, aren't they? Briefly, Laurie, if you would.
Yeah, they really are. Although that said, I'm not sure whether Biden could have influenced things or not here. I mean, really, there's not much going on there. I think a lot of relief amongst both parties that the government did not shut down, but I cannot believe people aren't jumping up and down about the fact that the U.S. isn't going to be able to borrow in the days and weeks to come.
Many problems ahead for 2025 and indeed for the Trump administration. It'll be fascinating to see how he deals with that. We will no doubt talk again in regard to that. Steve Gill, former advisor to Clinton and Bush administrations, and also Laurie Laird, the U.S. political commentator and economist. Thank you both very much indeed.